Everyone in town called him the lazy boy. He'd sleep in late, skip work, and avoid effort whenever he could. If there was a shortcut, he'd take it, even if it made things worse later. People laughed and said he'd never become anything in life. But one day, something happened that shocked everyone. The same boy they mocked, the one who always said, "I'll do it tomorrow," did something no one expected. This isn't just a story about laziness. It's about how one painful moment can change everything. It's about how failure, when it hits hard enough, can flip a switch inside your soul. By the end of this story, you'll discover the secret reason why lazy people sometimes hide a creative genius inside them, the truth about what actually wakes people up, and the one moment that can rewrite a person's entire future. Most people think lazy people fail because they don't care, but that's not true. The real reason might surprise you, and it's hidden in this story. Let's dive in. Let me show you exactly how it happened. In a quiet town surrounded by fields and sunlight lived a boy named Ryan. He wasn't mean, he wasn't rebellious, he was just comfortable. He loved easy things. He loved lying on the grass and watching clouds drift by while his father worked under the sun. His father was a farmer, disciplined, patient, and strong. Every morning before dawn, he'd be out fixing fences, watering crops, and checking for birds. Ryan's only job? Chase away the birds that tried to eat their rice. Simple, right? But even that felt exhausting to him. So instead of running around, Ryan built something. He tied ropes across the field, hung pots and rags from them. When the wind blew, they rattled and scared the birds. Ryan called it his lazy invention. People laughed, but it worked. Ryan would grin, lie back under a tree and say, "See? Smart people don't need to sweat." His father didn't yell, but deep down he worried. He's clever, he thought, but life doesn't reward cleverness without effort. And he was right, because one summer morning, everything changed. Ryan's father fell sick, really sick. He couldn't get out of bed. The field, the work, the harvest, it was all now Ryan's responsibility. For the first time ever, Ryan had to do real work. At first, he said, "I've got this." But the heat hit harder than he imagined. The soil was dry, the tools were heavy, and his hands blistered within hours. Days passed. The crops began to wither. Ryan tried watering them, but he was too slow, too tired, too late. By the end of the week, the fields that once shimmered with green had turned pale and lifeless. He stood there in silence, staring at what he'd lost. That night, sitting under the stars, he whispered, "Why can't I ever finish anything? Why am I always the one who gives up?" And then, something inside him cracked. For the first time, the word lazy didn't sound funny anymore. It hurt. Now here's where things get really interesting. The next morning, Ryan heard shouting near the town square. He walked over and saw a soldier in a shining uniform standing on a wooden cart, reading from a scroll. "By order of the king," he declared, "there will be a grand competition at the royal palace. The winner shall receive gold, honor, and a place in the king's court." The crowd gasped. Ryan froze. Gold. Honor? That money could save his family. Without a second thought, he shouted, "I'll go!" The villagers burst out laughing. "You?" one man sneered. "You can't even finish breakfast without a nap." Ryan ignored them. Something different was burning inside him this time. He packed a small bag, kissed his mother goodbye, and left before sunrise. The palace was miles away, but he didn't care. He walked for days, hungry, tired, and blistered, yet he didn't stop. Because this time, Quitting wasn't an option. When he finally reached the palace gates, hundreds of people were already there, tall, strong, confident. Ryan looked at his thin arms and dirty shoes. He felt small, but he stayed. The king himself stood on a balcony and announced, "The first challenge, cross the Great Lake. The first 3 to reach the other side will advance." The crowd cheered. A drum rolled. 3, 2, 1, go! Everyone jumped into the water, splashing and kicking hard. But Ryan didn't move. He couldn't swim well. People yelled, "Move, lazy boy!" But he just watched the chaos. Then, his eyes caught something near the shore. Broken branches, a few ropes, some wood pieces. An idea sparked. He tied the pieces together, built a quick raft, and used a stick as a paddle. While everyone else was struggling to swim, Ryan glided across the lake slowly, but surely. Halfway through, strong swimmers began to tire. Ryan paddled past them quietly, focused on the goal ahead. Minutes later, he touched the opposite shore. 3rd place. The crowd gasped. The lazy boy had beaten the strong ones. Ryan smiled for the first time in days. He whispered, "I may not be strong, but I can think." But he had no idea. The next challenge would test him like never before. The next morning, the king announced the second round. Each contestant was given a giant wooden block and told to move it 1 mile to the finish line. Behind them were piles of tools, ropes, saws, knives, and wooden planks. The first man grabbed a thick rope and began pulling. The second used a lever to push. Ryan stood there quietly, thinking. He wasn't the strongest, and he knew it. But he also knew something most people didn't. Working smart always beats working hard without purpose. He scanned the tools and smiled. He picked up a small knife. The crowd laughed. "What's he gonna do? Carve a toy?" Ryan ignored them. He began carving the block, chip by chip, line by line. For hours, the sound of scraping wood filled the air. When he was done, the judges leaned in, confused. Ryan's block wasn't a block anymore. It was round, a perfect cylinder. He pushed it gently. It rolled. Gasps erupted around the field. While the others sweated and grunted, dragging their heavy cubes, Ryan's creation rolled like a wheel. He pushed it faster and faster, laughing in disbelief. When he crossed the finish line first, the crowd exploded in cheers. The king himself stood up and said, "You didn't just move a block. You moved the way people think. You turned laziness into genius." Ryan bowed, smiling through tears. He whispered, "I didn't win because I'm smart. I won because I finally tried." When Ryan returned home, he didn't walk with pride. He walked with peace. He went straight to his father, who sat weakly under a tree. His father smiled faintly. "So, did you stay awake the whole trip?" Ryan knelt, showing him the gold coin. "I did more than stay awake, Father. I finished something I started." His father's eyes filled with tears. "I always knew you could, son." That night, Ryan stood alone in the field that once mocked him. The wind brushed his face as he whispered, "You taught me the value of work." Now it's my turn, and he worked. Harder than ever. Weeks later, green sprouts covered the once dead land. The same villagers who laughed at him now waved with respect. They whispered, "The lazy boy is gone." And in his place stood Ryan, the man who learned how to move mountains, one clever step at a time. Ryan's story holds a mirror up to us all. Laziness isn't always about being careless. It's often about not having a strong enough reason. When Ryan worked without purpose, he felt nothing. But the moment his father's health, his why, entered the picture, everything changed. That's the truth. You don't fight laziness with guilt. You fight it with meaning. Every one of us has a reason hidden somewhere. Maybe it's your family. Maybe it's your dream. Maybe it's the version of yourself you promised you'd become. Find that reason, and you'll never stay lazy again. Because once you know why you're doing something, how becomes easy. So if you've been waiting for motivation, stop waiting. Motivation doesn't come before action. It comes after it. Start with one step, one task, one habit. That's all it takes to wake the fire inside you. Before we wrap up, there's one final thing you need to know. Years later, the kingdom held another invention fair. This time, Ryan wasn't a contestant. He was a judge. He watched as young inventors showcased their creations. One nervous boy came up holding a small wooden device with ropes and pulleys. "It helps me work faster," the boy said shyly. "I made it because I get tired easily." Ryan smiled. He saw his younger self in that boy's eyes. He placed a hand on his shoulder and said softly, "Don't ever feel ashamed for wanting things to be easier. Just make sure your ideas make the world better. Laziness isn't evil. Wasted potential is." The boy's face lit up with hope. That night, Ryan stood under the same sky where he once begged for change. He looked up at the stars and whispered, "Once I was the laziest boy in the village. Now I'm proof that one reason can turn laziness into greatness." He smiled. "Father, I kept my promise." And as the moonlight touched the fields he once ruined, it shimmered over acres of green, a symbol of rebirth, purpose, and faith. This is the Soul Tales, where every story touches the soul.